Programmers Podcast using your smartphone. Don't miss out on the free KMET smartphone apps. Go to KMET1490am.com and download your free phone app today.
The Inner Voice Show is a dialogue between the host and the listeners about their relationships. This show is not an attempt to assess, diagnose, or treat any mental health or illness condition. Please consult your physician, psychiatrist, or psychotherapist for personal matters.
Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Inner Voice Show. I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine and have Sean in studio. This is a show about what matters most in our life, our minds, our thoughts, feelings, actions, relationships, and our fulfillment in this beautiful journey of life. In this show, I'll bring you the latest research in stressors in middle age linked to cognitive decline in older women. And then we'll speak to Bill O'Hanlon, psychotherapist and an author of Do One Thing Different, 10 Simple Ways to Change Your Life. You can call us and talk to us, to Bill and I, on studio line in 951-922-3532. Love to hear from you. Be sure to listen to my podcast on iTunes and Stitcher. Share it with your friends. Subscribe. Tell them to subscribe. Give comments. And you can also contact me via my email and go to my website, foojan.com, and connect with me. Tell me what it is that you want to hear. What are some of the subjects that you're interested in? If you have any questions in the world of life and psychology, and we'll bring all of that into the show. We'll be right back with the tip of the week.
Hello, I'm Dr. Foojan, and I have great news for you. I'm offering a special time-limited offer to anyone who's interested in online therapy or coaching sessions. I've developed the awareness integration model, which allows in only 12 weeks to raise your self-esteem and confidence and let go of your thoughts and emotions that produce depression and anxiety for you. So call today to schedule your online session and save $600. Call me today at 818-648-2140. That's 818-648-2140. Or go to www.foojan.com.
Well, here's the tip of the week. I had completely another topic to talk to you about. And then during this weekend, a lot happened. And no matter how I wanted to talk to you about what I originally wanted to, and I'm like, I really can't. So I got this report from NPR about the mass shootings. El Paso, Dayton, those two cities joined the shorthand we use for deadly mass shootings. This is from NPR. In the U.S., along with Parkland, San Bernardino, Las Vegas, Orlando. And as soon as I say one place, you will no doubt think of another. Aurora, Virginia Tech, Sandy Hook. Dayton now becomes the 251st mass shooting in the U.S. just this year, 2019. And we're in August. According to the Gun Violence Archives, a nonprofit research group that tracks these incidents, they define a mass shooting as an event in which at least 4 people were shot, excluding the shooter. We have become familiar with reporting this kind of violence. Sometimes the incidents don't really register beyond the headline, given the rest of the news. Sometimes, like yesterday morning, they cannot and should not be ignored. Here are some communities where the grief is still fresh. Gilroy, California, 5 dead, 11 wounded on July 20th. White Swan, Washington, 5 dead, 2 wounded on June 9th. Virginia Beach, Virginia, where 13 people died and 5 were wounded in the municipal building on May 31st. Phoenix, Arizona, on March 19th, 2 people died, 4 were wounded. And on February 16th, 5 died in Clinton after a 12 hours of standoff. Just a few of many places where mass shooting happened in 2019. And I think, Sean, you were talking about also Chicago. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, even over the weekend, it doesn't get mentioned as much. I believe there was 12 people killed and like 60 people wounded in gang attacks or whatever, random shootings in Chicago just over the weekend.
Yes, it's getting worse, and it's becoming of a daily concept. So my condolences to the families and everyone. This is no longer about an isolated group or just a particular city or country. This is about all of us. If you don't take this matter seriously, one day it will be you. It will be your child. It will be your neighborhood. Let's see what each person can do to stop violence. Start with you. Start with your own self, with your own head, with the way that you talk to yourself. Stop the anger and the hate toward yourself and everyone around you. Stop participating and promoting violence in any format, whether it's violent games, watching violent entertainment, violent apps, or websites. Some of these websites, it seems like websites and apps are also partly working to promote this type of thing, especially with the latest shootings. Stop participating in other people's violent dialogue. If they want to do this violence, you don't need to be a part of them. At least there will be less and less people getting sucked into these conversations and then acting on it. Start promoting peace, genuine caring and love for yourself first, and then others around you, and every being on earth. This is our home. This is where we all live together. And being active violence is just going to create distinctions in all of us. And then it's hard to live. It's really hard to live consistently under fear. And in many societies, many neighborhoods, that's what it used to be. That's what it's been. And now it's going to be everywhere. So I think every one of us has a responsibility in any format that you have the ability to do that. If you're a lawmaker, you have the responsibility that way. If you're a family member, you have a responsibility that way. So take your responsibility seriously, and hopefully we will start having more of a peaceful life and a loving life together. We'll be right back with the latest research.
Join the conversation every Monday afternoon at 3 p.m. Pacific for Inner Voice Heartfelt Chat with Dr. Foojan. Dr. Foojan is a radio and TV host, international speaker, psychotherapist, life coach, and the author of Life Reset, The Awareness Path to Create the Life You Want. She brings you the latest research and interviews with experts in the field of cognitive sciences. Anyone who loves to grow and create growth for humanity gets a voice on this call-in show. Inner Voice Heartfelt Chat with Dr. Foojan. Monday afternoons at 3 p.m. Pacific on Smart Talk KMET 1490 AM and on KMET1490am.com.
Welcome back again. So a new analysis of data on more than 900 Baltimore adults by Johns Hopkins Medicine's researchers have linked stressful life experiences among middle-aged women, but not men, to greater memory decline in later life. The researchers say that their findings add to evidence that stress hormones play an uneven gender role in brain health and align with well-documented higher rates of Alzheimer's disease in women than men. Although the researchers caution their study was designed to show association among phenomena and not the determinant of cause and effect, they say that if future studies demonstrate that stress responses does factor into the cause of dementia, then strategies designed to combat or moderate the body's chemical reactions to stress may prevent or delay onset of cognitive decline. The findings are published in the July issue of International Journal of Geriatric Psychiatry. According to the Alzheimer's Association, 1 in 6 women over age 60, hey, I'm going to be there in 2 years, will get Alzheimer's disease, compared with 1 in 11 men. There currently are no proven treatments that prevent or halt progression of the disease. We can't get rid of stressors, but we might adjust the way we respond to stress and have a real effect on brain function as we age. And although the study did not show the same association for men, it sheds further light on the effects of the stress responses on the brain with potential application to both men and women. Prior research by other investigators show that the effective age on the stress response is 3 times greater in women than in men. Separately, other research have shown that stressful life experiences can result in temporary memory and cognitive problems. To further explore whether stressful life experiences can be linked to developing long-term memory problems in women, specially researchers used data collected on 909 Baltimore residents for the National Institute of Mental Health Epidemiological Catchment Area Study. That study recruited participants from 1981 to 1983 from 5 cities in the U.S. to determine the prevalence of psychiatric disorders. Some 63% of participants were women, 60% were white. Participants were an average of age of 47 during their midlife check in the 90s. After enrollment, participants returned to trial sites for interviews and checkups 3 additional times. 1982, once 1993, and 1996, and once between 2003 and 4. During the 3rd visit, participants were asked if they experienced traumatic event in the past year, such as combat, rape, mugging, or some other physical attack, watching someone else get attacked or killed, receiving a threat, or living through a natural disaster. Some 22% of men and 23% of women reported at least one traumatic event within the past year before their visit. They also were asked about stressful life experiences such as a marriage, a divorce, death of a loved one, job loss, severe injury or sickness, a child moving out, retirement, or birth of a child. About 47% of men and 50% of women reported having at least one stressful life experience in the year before their visit. At the 3rd and 4th visit, the researchers tested the participants using a standardized learning and memory test developed by Iowa researchers. The test included having participants recall 20 words spoken aloud by the testers immediately after they heard them, and again 20 minutes later. And the 3rd visit, participants could recall on average 8 words immediately and 6 words later. I can't do that right now. Participants also had to identify the words spoken to them among a written list of 40 words. During the 3rd visit, participants correctly identified on average 15 words. By the 4th visit, participants recalled an average of 7 words, immediately 6 words after a delay, and correctly recognized most 14 words. The researchers measured any decrease in performance on the test between the 3rd and the 4th visit, and then compared those decreases with participants' reports of stressful life experience or traumatic events to see if there was an association. So the researchers team found that having a greater number of stressful life experiences over the last year in midlife in women was linked to a greater decline in recalling words later and recognizing those words. Women who experienced no stressful life experiences within the past year at the 3rd visit were able to remember an average of 0.5 fewer words when given the same memory test of the 4th visit. Women with 1 or more stressful life experiences, however, recalled on average 1 fewer word at the 4th visit than they had at the 3rd visit. The ability to recognize words declined by an average of 1.7 words for women with at least 1 stressors at the 3rd visit. So they didn't see the same trend in women who had traumatic events. So the researchers say that this finding suggests that ongoing stress, such as the experience during a divorce, may have more of a negative impact on a brain functioning than distinct traumatic events. This makes sense because what we call chronic stress can impair the body's ability to respond to stress in a healthy manner. The researchers did not see an association in men between a drop in word recall or recognition and experiencing either stressful life experience or traumatic events in midlife. Stress much earlier in life also was not a predictive of cognitive decline later in either men or women. So a normal stress response causes a temporary increase in stress hormones like cortisol. And when it's over, levels return to baseline and then you recover. But with repeated stress or with enhanced sensitivity to stress, your body mounts an increased and sustained hormone response that takes longer to recover. We know if stress hormone levels increase and remain high, this isn't good for the brain, hippocampus, the seat of the memory. The researchers say that the stress reduction hasn't gotten a whole lot of attention compared with other factors that may contribute to dementia or Alzheimer's, and that it might be worth exploring stress management techniques as a way of, or to delay, or prevent disease. Researchers add that there are medications being developed to combat how our brain handles stress, and that these may be used in conjunction with the behavioral stress coping techniques to reduce the impact of stress on aging mind. I hope they find it really quickly because I'm aging, or I just have to bring my stress down. So any of you who are listening, guess what? Especially if you're a woman, please bring your stress down. It's not good for you. Much worse than men. So I'm excited to have my guest, and I want to introduce him to you. Bill O'Hanlon, a psychotherapist. He has authored or co-authored 38 books. He has published over 64 articles or book chapters. His book have been translated into 18 languages, and he has appeared on Oprah with his book, Do One Thing Different. And that's the one that we're going to talk about. He's been on Today's Show, a variety of other television and radio programs since 1977. Bill has given over 3,500 talks around the world. He's a licensed mental health professional, certified professional counselor, and a licensed marriage and family therapist. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Bill O'Hanlon.
Join the conversation every Monday afternoon at 3 p.m. Pacific for Inner Voice Heartfelt Chat with Dr. Foojan. Dr. Foojan is a radio and TV host, international speaker, psychotherapist, life coach, and the author of Life Reset, The Awareness Path to Create the Life You Want. She brings you the latest research and interviews with experts in the field of cognitive sciences. Anyone who loves to grow and create growth for humanity gets a voice on this call-in show. Inner Voice Heartfelt Chat with Dr. Foojan. Monday afternoons at 3 p.m. Pacific on Smart Talk KMET 1490 AM and on KMET1490am.com. Dr. Foojan Zeine is a psychotherapist, a marriage and family therapist, and a life coach with more than 27 years of experience. She is the author of the Awareness Integration Model, which has been researched and published in numerous international journals. Dr. Foojan has offices in Beverly Hills, Irvine, and Woodland Hills, California, and also consults online and by telephone. Make an appointment with her today by calling 818-648-2140 or go online to www.foojan.com. That's www.foojan.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. Foojan, and I have great news for you. I'm offering a special time-limited offer to anyone who's interested in online therapy or coaching sessions. I've developed the Awareness Integration Model, which allows in only 12 weeks to raise your self-esteem and confidence and let go of your thoughts and emotions that produce depression and anxiety for you. So call today to schedule your online session and save $600. Call me today at 818-648-2140. That's 818-648-2140 or go to www.foojan.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to Inner Voice Show. I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine, and I am so excited to have Bill O'Hanlon with me. He's a psychotherapist and an author. He's an amazing, amazing speaker. Whenever we are at a gathering, seminars, workshops, I make sure that I go and listen to him. He's exciting, he's vibrant, and he brings the world into simple conversations and gives it to you as a gift. And I'm so glad to have you with us, Bill.
Thank you. And I was just listening to the intro, and Foojan.com. I mean, I want to have a one-name website. That's what I want. Bill.com will not work. It just won't work. I can tell you that.
Actually, you teach us how to write a book because you have so many books and have written. And when I tell you that you create context of a simple way of doing things that are complex. And I took your course. Everyone who's listening here or watching us through the show, please, you've got to go and sign up for his course. Do you still have your course?
No, actually, I'm retiring the course, and you took one of the last ones. So,
yay!
Yes, it was getyourbookWritten.com. You can go get some tips on writing books, but really, I've stopped doing that book writing, teaching, coaching, although I've coached over 300 books from other people into existence, and I have 39 of my own, and I'm working on my 40th and 41st at the moment. So stop me before I write again. That's what I say.
And do you, Sky, everybody see the guitars behind him? He's also an amazing songwriter and a guitar player. And today you wrote your 29th one, right?
92nd song. 90 seconds of the year. Of the year.
Other way, 90
The other
seconds.
way, that's right. It's just numera there. But yeah, 92nd song this year. I learned to co-write, which they do in California, in LA, and in Nashville. I had only written songs on my own, and I decided to get serious about it a few years ago. And I went to Nashville and LA, and they go, oh, no, we write with other people. And some people specialize in lyrics and melody. And like Lennon and McCartney, they just get together and write songs together. So I've learned how to do that, and I'm having a great time, and I'm writing songs that I hope are competitive and that you'll hear on the radio soon. So that's good.
It's beautiful. I've always watched you and Steve Gilligan. You just have this chemistry that keeps going back and forth. So
Yeah.
I'm holding you up to giving us another one of those in December when we go into Ericksonian workshop. So let's talk about do one thing different, 10 simple ways to change your life.
There you go. Well, this book was written 20 years ago, a little over 20 years ago. And, you know, I've written a bunch of books. I said 39. One of them hasn't come out yet. But it's rare that books stay in print more than a year, actually, to tell you the truth. Most books come and go. And this one just lasted. I have a few of my 39 books that aren't in print anymore. I'd say 3 or 4. But a lot of them have lasted. But this one sold the most. Do one thing different. Why? Partly because I think it's a good book. Partly because it was on Oprah, and that was my big claim to fame, to be on Oprah, and it sold a boatload after it went on Oprah, and for some reason that momentum has just kept going, and so about 6 months ago, the publishing company got a hold of my agent and me and said, hey, we think it might be time to do a reprint of this book, 20 year anniversary. We want to write a new introduction, and then we'll find a new cover. And so they did. They made a beautiful cover, and it's got a new lease on life. Do one thing different.
That's beautiful. So what is that one thing that we're supposed to do different in 10 simple ways?
Yeah, in 10 simple ways. That's one of my agents said, wait a minute, is it 1 or is it 10? But really, the idea is it's really, really difficult to make major life changes. It's so hard because we get in our grooves. So it's easier to make a small change to make a big change. And so I listed 10 different ways you can make small changes. And just to give you a general overview, I've divided into 3 categories, and that is change the doing, change what you say, and the actions and interactions you do, and then change the viewing, that is change what you're paying attention to, and change the ideas or interpretations or assessments you have about it. And so it's change the doing, change the viewing, and the last one is change the context. They always say travel is broadening, and if you went to a different country where they had totally different habits and values, it broadens you, it changes you in some ways. And I mean that, go to take a different route to work, Change what side of the bed you sleep in, change what side of the bed you get out of, change the context, and surround yourself with different people. Anything that changes what surrounds you. So change the doing, change the viewing, and change the context. And I've listed 10 different ways to do those. And all life is an experiment, as Thoreau said. The more experiments you try, the better. The better for this. Because if you're stuck and you don't like where you are in some place, make a small experiment, not a radical one, and change something. If you're overeating, eat everything with your non-dominant hand after you've eaten what's nutritionally right for you. If you go and binge on the ice cream, you have to eat it with your left hand if you're right-handed. So try small changes and see if you can break yourself out of that rut and find some new feelings, new experiences.
And it seems like being able to do that, it will keep us alive, passionate, and really participating in life. Because as we get into a routine, we deal with life as if it's an object. We deal with ourselves as if we're an object, and we deal with life as if it's an object. And then we get bored with it because
that is the challenge for being a human being. Our brains and our bodies get really efficient. If you drive the same route to work today, every day, you can drive it almost in your sleep. If you take the same subway to work every day, you can do it almost in your sleep. Because the brain gets used to it, the body gets used to it. Maybe you on a weekend, you've driven some places near your work and you've automatically driven into work, because you just are on automatic pilot. You do. But the brain wants to be efficient and wants to keep things easy. At the same time, we crave new. We crave the same and we crave new. So you have to find that balance. And when the same stuff goes on again and again, but you're suffering and you don't like it, that's when it's time to make one of these experiments and wake yourself up and make a change.
So you also talk about how to reinvent yourself, to keep yourself alive in different areas of your life, especially career, because careers are one area that we tend to get burned out, especially careers who deal with traumas or with firsthand caring for another human being consistently, customer service, or any of those.
Yeah,
and there's a rate.
People, yes, first responders, people who see the difficult side of life, like you and I do in our company work. You can get burned out, so you have to find ways to keep yourself alive and interested and find slightly different things to do. And what I've done is I have this simple principle: is just follow the energy. If you find yourself getting bored, as you said, burned out, you dread going into work, it's time for a change. And for me, the first change I made was, in addition to doing the counseling and therapy work with individuals and couples and groups and families, I began to speak, as you did. You went out and started speaking and telling people about your insights into life and into our career and into things that they might be facing. And then I began to write books. And that kept me interested and brought that new energy back to the work I was doing with individuals or couples or families or groups. And then, I did that for a bunch of years, and I started for that. And as you say, I reinvented myself because I've always had a hobby of music, and I decided to make a profession of music. So I started to get serious about songwriting, and I went to LA, which is a great songwriting capital, and Nashville in the United States, which is a great songwriting capital, and New York and Atlanta and London and Sydney and Australia. There are songwriting capitals, but I've specialized in LA and Nashville, and I've been so excited in bringing a new energy back to whatever books I write and to the other work that I do. So I think first you have to recognize when your energy is waning for that last thing. It used to be in our parents' generation, they'd get one job and they'd keep it for 40 years or 30 years, and then they retire from that job. That's not the world we live in anymore. And people are living longer and more healthily, usually, longer years where they can function better. They might need more money, so they may work longer, but they also want to have life of meaning. So you've got to probably reinvent yourself every 10 years or however long it is. It might be different for a different individual, but You can tell when the old life is dying and when the new one is coming because you're more energized for something else. So I'd say first one is follow the energy, show me the energy as the old the movie said, show me the money. I say, show me the energy. That's right.
You also talk about 4 different types of energies, it seems like, that give meaning and direction to people's life. So talk a little bit about 4 types of energies as they show up.
Yeah. Let me just tell you a little story first. One time, a number of years ago, I come from a big family, 8 kids, and my younger sister, with whom I'm really close, is one of my great supporters, wrote me and said, you have to write another book. And I'm like, no, I don't want to write another book. I've already written enough. And she said, no, my husband just doesn't know what he wants to do with life. And you always seem totally into what you're doing. And you seem to find your way really easily. I say, well, I don't even know how to talk about that because I do it sort of by feel. I do it by braille. I don't even make all these goals and then I'm going to go for my goals. I just do it by that energy, by the feeling of it. And so she said, no, you have to write a book. And I know I can't. And I swear to you, 2 years later, I'm a very good sleeper. I sleep 8 hours a night. I sat bolt up in my bed in the middle of the night, and I had the outline for that book that she asked me to write. And I was like, oh, I hate that because I really like to sleep. And I knew exactly what I wanted to say. And what I came up with was what had guided me and a bunch of people that I'd worked with in my counseling and therapy work are one of 4 energies or some combination. So I'm just going to list them first, and then we'll talk about them. Blissed, blessed, pissed, and dissed. So what do I mean by that? Blissed is the easy one. Is what do you love? When you and I have contact, when you see each other at some counseling or psychotherapy conference, or I hear you interviewing someone or seeing, interviewing me or whatever, you love this. There's something about it that really speaks to you. You love to connect people. You love to get their wisdom out into the world, and you love to get your ideas out in the world. So there's something that you love about that. That's blissed. And, Steven Spielberg, when he was a kid, he wasn't a very good student. He was a little learning disabled. And when he was 13 or 14, he convinced his parents to get him a Super 8 movie camera that he could record. He started making movies. He knew what he loved. And so that's the bliss one. If you've got that, great. Most people that I know don't know that. They just don't know what they love. They know what they don't like, but they don't know what they love. But if you do, great. So bliss. Second one is blessed. You find someone who believes in you and sees some strengths or abilities in you or capabilities. Maybe you had a friend who said, oh, Foojan, you're so good at listening to people, or you're really good at interviewing people. You should be coming in. Somebody sees something in you that they honor, they support, they sponsor, they encourage. Could be a teacher, could be a parent, could be your parent said you can do anything you want. It could be your best friend who just believes in you. Somebody who believes in you and encourages you and releases an energy in a certain direction. So those are the positive sides, blissed and blessed. But then there are even the negative sides of life that can show you where you're supposed to go. Pissed is you don't like what's going on. You want to change something, some injustice in the world, some hurt that's happening in the world. So you get the Nelson Mandelas and Martin Luther Kings of the world who stand up to injustice and they're righteously indignant. And they say, this is not right and it's not going to stand and I want to make a change in it. So that energizes them in a certain direction. And so then the last one is dissed. And dissed, I mean either dissatisfied or, as the kids say, disrespected. You dissed me. And so I mean somewhere along the line, someone has disrespected or hurt or wounded you or someone you cared about. So this Patrick Stewart, the guy who starred in Star Trek and has been in a number of other movies, I heard him talk one time. His mother was abused physically by his father. And when he grew up, that became his passion, to make sure he donated and worked for causes to stop domestic violence. That became his wound, which also became one of his passions. And so what are you sensitized to in the world because of some hurt that happened to you or someone you cared about? Some people have a tender heart for animals and they want to rescue animals. Some people have a tender heart for, human trafficking. Some people, they for whatever reason, that just touches them because it reminds them of the wound or the hurt that they had. So they were disrespected, or someone they loved was disrespected, and they're dissatisfied that this still exists in the world. So one of those energies can tell you what's next for you, because they are energies, and the energy will be waning for the last thing, and it will be waxing and getting stronger for the next thing. And sometimes I've had all four. When I became a speaker, I was blessed because I loved psychotherapy and counseling and self-help stuff and psychological stuff. I had people who believed in me, encouraged me. And then I also didn't like how my field, our field, psychotherapy and counseling, was so focused on pathological and negative things. And I had been molested when I was a kid, so I was sensitive to people's pain. You know, I knew there was suffering in the world, and I wanted to relieve suffering as quickly as I could. So I had a combination of all those four, which was a winning combination, because I became a speaker that traveled around the world 3 or 4 times a month, and I was an old hippie in my early days. And I couldn't believe I was actually making money speaking. You know, it was shocking to me. But I didn't go into it for the money. I did it because my energy was flowing there. And all those energies really pointed me in that direction. So you got to pay attention to where the energy is in your life and in your body.
It's interesting, as you were talking and sharing, this also came up for me, that which one of these is there for me. And I remember I had a very tough childhood. I was also molested from age 3 to 8, but also I had parents who were constantly fighting with each other. And I remember that the first time I went to a therapist, and I'm like, oh my God, there's hope. And I remember as a child, it was like, you know, there must be some responsible relationships. This can't be it. And it became like I wanted then to try to create responsible relationships. And I remember when I had this option of, well, which route of psychotherapy I wanted to go to marriage and family therapy, because my concept was I needed to create a space for responsible relationships where people related to each other, you know, being accountable and responsible. And then obviously the model I created still is like, it has that, it's like that passion and energy in it. And then my mother was a very famous radio and television personality. So I was grown up in that space. So it was like so natural that when you say, like, I gravitated toward this concept of interviewing and being with people in all these years of, you know, 20 some years in media of television and radio, and conversing on stages, this just like, it is so natural from the experience we have that it's just a matter of, if we just paid attention and got ourselves out of the way, this energies that are there to release and manifest themselves, they just show up.
They do. And, you know, and what I was saying earlier about becoming a speaker or an author or whatever, you did this because you sort of had to. And then you are of service to other people. I mean, you're so honoring of the people that you have on your shows. I've experienced it. When you ask me back, yes, I'm there. Absolutely. Yeah, Foojan, yeah, absolutely. I'm there. Because you're so good at that, and you're honoring us, and you're serving us, and you're serving your audience. And that, I think that's the second thing, is you can't go into it to try and get famous or rich. You have to go into it to be of service. And then the fame and the riches come as a side effect. You know, that's just the way it goes. You have to have these pure intentions. And again, I think you're a good example of that. And again, I was a hippie, and I didn't think I'd make any money in life. And I was like, what? They're paying me money? Oh, yes. So this is good. I like money. You know, I didn't think I would like money because I disdained it when I was a hippie. But I was like, it's good to be able to pay your bills. That is really cool. So
Absolutely.
I think that, you know, to be of service to people rather than what can you do for me? What can you do for me? Always. It's a really good place to come into a new endeavor from. And that's a lesson I learned early on. Inadvertently, I wasn't thinking I was learning that lesson, but I did.
And also in your book, you talk about steps toward successful reinvention. So beside the energies to be looked at, blessed, bliss, pissed, and this, beyond that, you have specific steps. And this is what I always love about your talks and your books. You bring things into a simple way that person can follow step by step. So tell us about those steps.
Well, I mean, the first thing you have to go in not knowing. I mean, you sort of knew because your mother was in media, but then you had to learn for yourself. How do I do this? How do I book guests? How do I find the gigs to do it? How do I find the right atmosphere? So you have to go in being willing to be that beginner's mind that they talk about in some of the spiritual traditions of not knowing. And people are embarrassed if they don't know. They want to look like they know. So first, be willing not to know. Second, be willing to take a lot of actions. I mean, Tony Robbins calls it massive action. Take massive action, fall on your face, but always, they say, when you fall on your face, pick something up. And Milton Erickson, who was my teacher, said, if you fall on your face, at least you're heading in the right direction. So that's the third thing. First of all, identify what direction. Secondly, be willing to be a beginner and not know and not look cool. The third thing is be willing to do a bunch of actions, most of which won't work. The fourth thing I already said, be of service to people. Try and figure out how you can help other people. And therefore, that will sort of increase your visibility and your network. And those people will help you. Find a mentor or a role model. You had your mother in terms of media. You didn't have such great role model in terms of a responsible relationship. You had to kind of either go out in the world and find other people who weren't your parents and model on them, or just figure out your own model. So find some role models or mentors, people who could show you the ropes, or again, encourage you or open some doors for you, or whatever it may be. And they may just be people from afar that you never ever meet. They don't really one-on-one mentor you. You just see, for me, when I first went to write a book, a mutual friend of ours, they will not say his name, but he organizes conferences, told me, you'll never get a book published, Bill, because you only have a master's degree. You'll need a PhD or an MD. That's in this field. You'll never get a book published. But I knew there were two people in our field, Jay Haley and Virginia Satir, who had master's degree, who had a book published. And I thought, okay, they're my role models, not him who has a PhD. I don't have a PhD, so I'm going to have to find role models that tell me it's possible to do this thing. So, and I then on from there, you just always have to find a network, a team, people, nobody does things on their own ever, even if they think they're independent and they're all strong. You always need people around you. I mean, I met Sean just as we were about to go on air, who's part of your team, and he's making sure this all works and that we can focus on what we want to focus on. You find people on your team, and, there are other people on your team, I'm sure, that help you do the thing. And then you start to take in the feedback from the world, that 10,000 hour thing that they always talk about. It's not just doing something a lot. It's getting feedback from the world and making corrections. And they call it stretched practice. If you're playing music, if you play music in front of people, you'll soon find out which works and which part of your music works and which doesn't. If you're doing a talk, you'll find out which parts people really respond to and which they don't. So get feedback from the world and let other people in the world be your teachers, and then rinse and repeat until you get where you're going to go.
So for some reason, I wrote 8. I'm missing a couple of them.
There are 11, but I don't remember them off the top of my head.
Got it.
11. I make up new ones.
Oh, I love it. Okay.
I make up new lists all the time because I'm trying to simplify it, as you say. I want to make it as simple as possible.
Got it. Some of the things that is that as I was hearing you, it's very important. The concept of mentorship and role modeling. It's a lot of people, as I work with them in my office, they get stuck in the concept of, okay, I didn't learn it from my parents, and oh well, there's nothing I can do. Like, this was the only source. And sometimes I'm sure you have heard it, and people who are listening or viewing guys go, this is just the way I am. This is who I am. And they get stuck with it. I love it if somebody says, this is who I am, and it promotes them. But when they get stuck in this who I am, then life just doesn't go forward, because I sense their misery. They come to me to talk about their misery. So this concept of getting a mentor, even if it's far away, even if it's not like my big brother up here.
It could be. I used to go to other people's houses for dinner every once in a while. I thought, this is really different from my house, because everyone's yelling at my house during dinner all at the same time. They're talking at the same time. And in this house, one person talks at a time. So you find other models in the world. you read books, you watch movies and television shows, you listen to interviews, and you get new ideas. And so you expose yourself. And that's why I said traveling, you've been of several different cultures. And I bet and I know people I knew a woman who never went out of the county she was raised in the United States. And I thought, wow, that surprises me, because even when you travel to a different state or a different part of the country in the US, you'll get exposed to new ideas and new cultures and new values. If you go to a different country, it'll blow your mind. If you've only lived in the one country in your world, you find that people have different values. When I first went to Europe, I didn't realize I had an American value that new is good. And when I said, these are the newest techniques from America, they were like, I'm not so sure. New wasn't necessarily always good in Europe. And that can be a thing that holds them back, but it can also be something that gets them to, have pride in tradition and something that's tried and true. And so you bump up against things that aren't your usual ways of thinking or doing or being. And I think that's the greatest thing. Have the most diverse friends you can have. Give yourself some diverse experiences to wake you up to where those blinders are, where the limitations are, where you're not questioning things, where the way you were raised is not the way it is. And so, and that's what therapy and counseling will do. It'll bring you to somebody who'll get you to question those things that aren't real, but you think are real. And that is a powerful thing.
I actually wanted to ask you a question, because I know that you have such a broad way of thinking, some very philosophical, some very existential, and some very practical and a day-to-day life. And many times in your books, you bring all of these together. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to the beginning of the show. I was just, and I'm sure everybody is saddened by all the violence that's going on. And I think that there's a way of being like, we're happy, we're moving along, we're successful in life in many aspects. And then you turn on the TV, or you are part of the witnessing of what's going on as far as violence around the world. And I don't even say in the US. US has been back to back. Some countries have this every day. But there's a feeling that shows up, fear, sadness, anger. A lot goes on within us as we are in a bigger system. So as you tend to integrate, how do I reinvent my life? How do I live my passion? I want to propose one more question, and is, how do I integrate what's going on out there in that way? And how do I become responsible and accountable in creating something where I can live my passion, I can live all that I love, and also contribute to the world as is when we are facing this type of anger, rage, and violence.
Yeah, and sadness and grief and all that kind of stuff, and anger and violence, as you say. I think one of the enemies of violence and hatred is compassion and nuanced understanding. Like we get cartoon images of each other. It's like, oh, Donald Trump is this, and the Democrats are this, and we kind of put them in boxes. If we had a chance, and I created a kind of therapy, and you and I've talked a little about it before, called inclusive therapy. That's the way I am, except when I'm not that way. Or that's the way it always is, except when it's not that way. So when I see these discussions on the media and sometimes on social media, people are all or nothing, black or white, this or that. And I'm going, yeah, this and a little of that, and this and a little of that. Again, it's one of the things you do when you go into different cultures. You go, oh, okay, it's not always that way. It's usually that way, except when it isn't. And so I try and help people in the counseling and therapy process. I used to think I was a shy person, and that was my identity. I was like, I'm shy. Until my mid to late 20s, I was painfully shy. And now you look at me, I can barely stop talking. And so, and it's easy for me to do this kind of stuff. And so I realized I'm shy except when I'm not. When I was with a close friend or with my family with whom I was really comfortable, I was not shy. And when I go out and play music, I was not shy. Otherwise, I was shy. And then I started to become a speaker, and I really developed that other side of myself. And then I met a famous singer-songwriter, you probably know, James Taylor, on a plane. And I realized I'm not shy anymore, but I can still be shy. And so we're such a combination in the world, in our cultures, in our families of, this and that. And try and remember the whole yin-yang of it rather than this is the way it is or it's always this way. That's the first step to me towards compassion and understanding towards yourself and those kind of shadow sides of yourself, as the Jungians call them, the neglected and shadow sides of yourself, and the understanding of other people so you don't demonize them and want to go out with the AK-47 and hurt them.
Yeah. The understanding of all sides of ourselves has a couple of ways that shows up and manifests. Learning about ourselves in all around and integrating them, it seems like not only would allow us to accept the world as a combination also, but also hold that kind of a reinventing our life, because you will become a multiple faceted human being. You become much more interesting, actually, versus if you are just hooked on one thing and there's only one conversation you can hold and your brain only goes on one level, right?
I like that word that you said too, is faceted. I mean, if you think of a gem, a diamond, or you can look at it from a bunch of different angles. And I think, that I had a former father-in-law who was a Southern Baptist minister, but he was really open and very liberal in a certain way, not like most Southern Baptists that I've ever met. And he said, I don't understand fundamentalism. I don't get the fun and I don't get the mental. All I get is the duh. And, I'm sorry if that offends some people who consider themselves fundamentalists, but I think what he meant was if you only, there's nothing as dangerous as an idea when it's the only one you have about yourself, about others, and about the world. And I think what you're talking about is appreciating those facets of yourself. You and I both were influenced by the Jungian aspect, and Jung had this idea, whatever you hate out in the world or can't accept out in the world, it's usually some problem you have with yourself, you're not examining and not accepting. And I think that knowing I'm multifaceted, sometimes I'm generous and sometimes I'm selfish, sometimes I'm kind and sometimes I'm not kind, to be able to accept that in yourself and then be less judgmental and less angry towards others. Now that's different from making boundaries. It's not okay to hit other people. It's not okay to shoot other people. It's not okay to hurt other people. I'm talking about the feelings and the sense of yourself inside. If you can come to more acceptance of those facets, those inner facets that you were talking about, that is really, really crucial to creating peace within yourself and peace in the world. Not so easy to do but you'll keep doing it, and you'll keep interviewing people and bringing light and wisdom and examining those facets from all the ways that you do. You've got the accumulated wisdom of the thousands of people you've talked to, rather than your just point of view and your family and your culture point of view. You've broadened your facets to so many ways of thinking about the world. I can't wait for your next book.
Because I feel blessed in all of it. Everyone who's listening and viewing us, Bill O'Hanlon, please go to Amazon.com, go to BillO'Hanlon.com. Do one thing different, 10 simple ways to change your life. Thank you so much, Bill. I'm so excited to be with you in December, everyone. If you are a therapist, come down to Ericksonian Congress in Phoenix, Arizona. We would love to see you, and I'd love to hear more about all that you do, Bill, when we're there. Thank you for being on our show.
Thanks.
And for all of you who are there, create an amazing world for yourself and everyone around you. I'll see you next week.
The Inner Voice Show is a dialogue between the host and the listeners about their relationships. This show is not an attempt to assess, diagnose, or treat any mental health or illness condition. Please consult your physician, psychiatrist, or psychotherapist for personal matters.
KMET, Banning, Beaumont, Redlands, and Palm Springs.
From ABC News.